feet. The date is June 14, 1943. The location is the steaming malaria-ridden hellscape of New Guinea. In the skies above the Owen Stanley Mountains, the United States 5th Air Force is bleeding to death. Every morning, American bombers B-17s and B-24s lumber into the air to strike Japanese positions at Leh and Salamaua. And every morning, they are slaughtered. The Japanese Zeros appear out of nowhere, diving from the sun. Their 20 mm cannons tearing through the aluminum skin of the American heavies. The statistics are horrifying. In the last 3 months alone, the bomber casualty rate has climbed to nearly 15% for a 10-man crew. That means statistically, they are dead men walking before they even finish their tour. But the terrifying part isn't the losses, it's the mystery. American intelligence knows the Japanese have a base at WWII on the northern coast. But WWII is supposed to be a small, forward operating base, a refueling stop. Yet, every day, swarms of 50, 60, sometimes 100 enemy fighters rise to meet the Americans. Where are they coming from? General George Kenny, the maverick commander of the Allied Air Forces in the Southwest Pacific, is staring at a map that doesn't make sense. His intelligence officers tell him the Japanese air strength is finite. They tell him the enemy can't possibly support a major air fleet in the dense, uninhabited jungle west of WWII. The map says it's nothing but jagged peaks and unexplored, green voids. What General Kenny and the entire U.S. military command doesn't know is that the map is lying. And the only person who is about to figure it out isn't a 4-star general or a master codebreaker. It's a 19-year-old kid from rural Pennsylvania. A photo-reconnaissance pilot with more guts than navigation skills. Who is about to make a stupid map-reading error that will change the course of the entire Pacific War. To understand the magnitude of this mistake, we have to look at the chessboard. By mid-1943, the Pacific War has ground to a bloody stalemate. The U.S. Navy is inching across the Central Pacific. But in the South Pacific, General Douglas MacArthur is stuck. He wants to leapfrog up the coast of New Guinea to get back to the Philippines. But he can't move a single inch without air superiority. And right now, the Imperial Japanese Army Air Force owns the sky. The Japanese have created what they believe is an invincible defense. They call it the absolute national defense zone. Their strategy is simple: bleed the Americans dry. They have built a network of airfields so complex, so well camouflaged, and so deep in the jungle that Allied reconnaissance planes fly right over them without seeing a thing. Major General Claire Chennault, the famous leader of the Flying Tigers, had warned Washington. The Japanese are masters of camouflage. They can hide a whole airfield under a canopy of nets and fake trees. The Pentagon's solution is bureaucratic and slow. They send high-altitude bombers to map the coast. But the cloud cover over New Guinea is legendary. The weather, as pilots call it, is a more dangerous enemy than the Zeros. Cumulonimbus clouds stack up to 40,000 feet, hiding everything below. The experts agree attacking the Japanese main bases is impossible because we don't know where they are. We are fighting a ghost. The stakes are total annihilation. If Kenny can't suppress the Japanese air power, MacArthur's invasion force will be sunk before it hits the beach. Thousands of Marines and GEs will die in the surf. The pressure on Kenny is immense. Washington is threatening to cut his supply of planes if he doesn't produce results. He needs a miracle. He needs to see through the jungle. Enter Second Lieutenant Gary Radford, feet. Radford isn't your typical ace pilot. He doesn't have a chest full of medals, feet, and he barely passed his navigation exams in flight school. He's one of the Reco boys, feet. The pilots of the 8th Photo-Reconnaissance Squadron. They fly the F-5, feet, a modified P-38 Lightning stripped of all guns and armor to make room for heavy cameras and extra fuel, feet. Their motto is alone, unarmed, and unafraid. In reality, they are usually terrified, feet. Their job is to fly deep into enemy territory, snap photos, and outrun anything that tries to kill them. Radford is a kid in every sense of the word, feet. He's known in the squadron for his casual attitude towards regulations and his shaky relationship with maps, feet. In the featureless green ocean of the New Guinea jungle, getting lost is easy. For Radford, it's a Tuesday, feet. On July 10, 1943, Radford is assigned a routine mission map the coastline west of WWII, feet. It's a milk run. Fly up the coast, turn cameras on, fly home. But Radford has a problem. His compass is drifting, feet. And the cloud layer is thicker than anticipated. He's supposed to turn back if the weather closes in. That's the protocol. But Radford is bored and he's young. He decides to duck under the weather, feet. He drops his P-38 down to 8,000 feet, weaving through the mountain passes. He's looking for the coastline, feet. But he's made a critical error. He hasn't corrected for the strong wind blowing from the south. Feet, he isn't flying along the coast. He is flying inland, deep inland, into the white space on the map marked as impassable mountains. Radford is now completely lost. Feet, by his calculations, he should be over the ocean. Instead, feet, he's skimming over a massive valley that isn't on his chart. He checks his fuel. He's burning gas fast. He knows he should climb and radio for a fix, but radio silence is mandatory. He banks his P-38 left, feet, looking for a landmark. That's when he sees it. Through a break in the mist, near a massive lake, Lake Sentani. Feet, though he doesn't know its name yet, he sees flashes of light. Sun glinting off metal. Radford blinks. In the middle of this uninhabited jungle, there is a scar in the earth. Not just a clearing, a runway. No, feet. Not air runway. 3 of them. Huge paved strips carved right out of the jungle floor. And they are packed. I almost swallowed my gum. Radford would later tell his bunkmates, feet. It looked like a parking lot at the Ford factory. Parked wingtip to wingtip, with zero camouflage, feet, are hundreds of Japanese bombers and fighters.
That is Oscars.
Tonys. They are sitting there in the open, feet. Engines cold, pilots likely having tea. Why? Because they are 500 miles beyond the range of American fighters, feet. They think they are on the moon. They think no American plane could ever reach them, feet. Radford realizes 2 things simultaneously. 1. He is looking at the secret heart of the Japanese air empire. 2. Feet. If they see him, he is dead. He has a split-second decision to make. The safe play is to run, feet. But Radford does something that would make a flight instructor faint, feet. He flips the switch on his trimetragon cameras and Desert Dives. He roars over the Hollandia complex at 2,000 feet, his cameras clicking furiously. He sees ground crews looking up, frozen in shock, feet. They don't even run to the anti-aircraft guns. They just stare at the twin, boom devil screaming over their heads. That is illegal, a Japanese officer might have thought. No enemy plane is allowed to be here. Radford pushes the throttles through the gate. His engines scream as he climbs back into the clouds. Feet. His film magazines, full of the most dangerous intelligence of the war. When Radford lands back at Port Moresby, feet. His hands are shaking. He hands the film canisters to the intelligence officer and says, "You're not going to believe this." He's right. They don't. When the photos are developed and analyzed, feet, the initial reaction from the senior intelligence staff is dismissal. This is a mistake. A colonel says, feet, throwing the photos on the table. Radford got lost. These are probably just plantation clearings or cloud shadows. Feet. The Japanese cannot build a base that big, that far inland, without us knowing. They accuse Radford of falsifying his location. They say he must have drifted over a known base like Rabaul. The bureaucracy kicks in. They want to bury the report. It defies the accepted wisdom. It challenges the maps, feet. But the photos find their way up the chain of command to General Kenny. Kenny is a small man with a bulldog face and a hatred for accepted wisdom. He looks at the photos, feet. He sees the distinct shapes of the Japanese planes. He looks at the stupid error Radford made on his navigation log. Kenny realizes the truth, feet. The kid didn't get lost. Kenny growls. He got found. Kenny calls a meeting with General MacArthur's staff, feet. The room is tense. The army planners are skeptical. They are tracing lines on the old maps. "Gentlemen," Kenny says, feet, signaling his aide. "Turn on the projector." The room erupts. Projected on the wall is a mosaic of Radford's photos, feet. It shows the Hollandia complex in high definition. You can count the rivets on the wings of the Zeros. You can see the fuel trucks. Intelligence officers start counting out loud. 50, 100, 200 feet. There are over 340 Japanese aircraft parked in the open. It is the motherlode. Feet, they're sitting ducks. Kenny announces. They think they're safe. They don't think we have the range to touch them. MacArthur looks at the photos, then at Kenny. "General," MacArthur says, "can you hit them?" Kenny smiles. "I can't just hit them, sir. I can wipe them off the face of the earth." But there's a catch, feet. Hollandia is at the extreme limit of the P-38's range. To get there, fight, and get back, feet. The pilots will have to fly 8 hours over open ocean and mountains. If they run out of gas, they crash. If they get shot up, they crash. Kenny overrules the safety regulations. Feet, he approves a plan that is technically illegal by Army Air Force safety standards, feet. He orders his mechanics to install massive drop tanks on the P-38s. He orders the 5th Air Force to prepare for the longest fighter mission in history, feet. If you're enjoying this deep dive into the hidden history of WWII, feet, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. We break down the battles you won't find in the textbooks. And now, let's see if Kenny's gamble pays off. The date is set. The target is Hollandia. On the morning of March 30, feet 1944, the 5th Air Force launches everything it has. But this isn't just a raid, it's an execution. Feet leading the attack is Major Richard Bong, America's ace of aces, and Colonel Thomas Lynch, feet. They are flying P-30As, loaded with so much fuel they can barely climb. The Japanese at Hollandia are complacent. Their own map reading of the war tells them they are safe. A captured diary from a Japanese pilot, feet. Warrant Officer Toshiro Sakai reads if the Americans are persistent at WWII, but they are like mosquitoes, feet. They cannot reach the eagle's nest here. We sleep soundly. They are about to wake up to a nightmare. At Henfi Hozard AM, feet. The roar of hundreds of engines shakes the jungle leaves. The Japanese radar operators don't react in time, feet. They assume it's their own planes returning. Feet. Major Thomas Lynch levels his P-38 and dives on the parked rows of aircraft. Feet. It was like a buffet, he would later say. You couldn't miss. The first wave of B-25 Mitchell bombers comes in at treetop level. These aren't high-altitude bombers anymore, feet. Kenny has modified them into Strafers, bristling with 50 caliber machine guns in the nose, feet. They unleash a torrent of lead that shreds the Japanese planes where they sit. Fuel trucks explode. Ammunition dumps cook off. The parking lot that Radford discovered turns into an inferno, feet. Japanese pilots scramble to their planes, but they are cut down before they can even turn the props, feet. It is a slaughter. In the air, a few Japanese Oscars manage to take off. They are met by Richard Bong and his flight, feet. The combat is brutal and short. Bong, flying his P-38 Marge, tears into the enemy formation. I saw a Zero trying to climb out, Bong reports in his combat log. I gave him a short burst and he disintegrated, feet. I didn't even have to maneuver. The statistics of the raid are staggering. By the time the smoke clears, feet. Over 290 Japanese aircraft have been destroyed on the ground or in the air, feet. The fuel dumps are burning so fiercely the smoke can be seen from 50 miles away. The Japanese 6th Air Division, feet. The force that had been terrorizing New Guinea for 2 years ceases to exist in a single afternoon, feet. The kill ratio is absurd. The Americans lose only a handful of planes, mostly to accidents or ground fire, feet. The Japanese lose their entire air capability in the region. A surviving Japanese officer, Colonel Matsuichi Inada, feet, would later say we were stunned. It was impossible. We believed the Americans were tied to their bases, feet. When the sky filled with lightning, we knew the war in New Guinea was over. Because of one teenager's wrong turn, feet. The hidden airfield network became the world's largest scrapyard. Imagine being one of those pilots flying an 8-hour mission over the jungle. The endurance required was insane, feet. If you want to support the channel so we can keep visualizing these stories, check out our Patreon below. Thouser, feet. The destruction of the Hollandia airfields broke the back of the Japanese defense. General MacArthur, feet. Realizing the enemy was now blind and defenseless, launched his invasion of Hollandia just weeks later, feet. The troops landed with almost no opposition from the air, feet. Thousands of American lives were saved because the beaches weren't strafed, feet. The impossible leapfrog strategy worked. And what of our hero, Lieutenant Radford? He didn't get a Medal of Honor, feet. He didn't get a parade. In true military fashion, he was reprimanded for deviating from the flight plan, before being quietly commended for the intelligence coup of the century, feet. He survived the war, flying dozens more missions, but he always remained humble about his discovery. Years later, feet, when asked about finding Hollandia, Radford simply shrugged. I wasn't trying to be a hero, he said. Feet, I was just a kid who was bad at reading maps. I guess sometimes it pays to be lost. Today, feet. The rusted skeletons of those Japanese Zeros and Bettys still litter the jungle floor near Lake Sentani, feet, consumed by vines and thyme, feet. They are silent monuments to the arrogance of an empire that thought it could hide from the sky, feet, and 2, the happy accident that exposed them. It reminds us that in war, feet, meticulous planning and brilliant strategy are essential, but sometimes history turns on the smallest feet, most human of things: a young man, a cloudy day, and a map that was wrong. This is the story of how a mistake won a campaign. This was the wrong turn that paved the road to Tokyo. Feet. Thanks for watching. Last words. We'll see you in the next one.